What Drives You is brought to you by Ziegler, your premier source for equipping life and leadership coaches. Visit Ziegler.com and let them inspire your true coaching performance.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining me as I talk with today's most important influencers, guides, and change makers to uncover what truly drives them and extract the big takeaway from their personal journey and their greatest wisdom. In this episode, I'm joined by another self-help guide and curator, and I bring him to you because I want to dig into his interest in personal development and why he's making such a huge effort to influence the culture with it and doing it in a big way, I might add. And I want you to hear another angle on helping you take all this info and actually applying it to your life. So my guest is Lee Rankinen. He is the co-founder, along with Justin Malik, and producer of the Optimal Living Daily podcast network. You've probably seen it as you've been browsing around the self-improvement categories. Justin earned his MBA at Pepperdine University in 2010. Lee did. That's where he met Justin. And both of those guys eventually, this is what's interesting, and we're going to talk about it here in just a second, launched six-figure app businesses. And after feeling unfulfilled with those businesses, they launched Optimal Living Daily to spread motivational and inspirational messages. They've garnered over 400 million downloads since they launched in December 2015, which, Lee, interesting enough, is about the time we launched this show as well. So for context, folks, we're at about 65 million, which I brag about. It just doesn't hold up to their 400 million. So, but that tells you the interest in what they're doing and why you should go check out Optimal Living Daily. If you like this podcast, you're absolutely going to like theirs. Theirs are bite-sized portions too, so you can take them on a quick jaunt of what you're doing, or take a bunch of them in at a time. So we're going to talk about how to best apply all this self-help and personal development to our lives. Justin, man, thanks for being here. It's great to have you on again since we talked, I guess, a couple months ago.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Well, I want to know, we're going to talk about what you guys are doing on the show, but I love that you guys go the university route. You're at a prestigious place. You launch a business. It actually succeeds. You've arrived, and yet you didn't. I mean, what's the backstory behind that? Because it's a big deal to look at that. I mean, that's the kind of thing where your parents go, "Oh my, you guys did it. You went to college, you got real jobs, you're making money, and now you're going to go after some personal development stuff." What's with that? So what was with that?
Yeah, I mean, money is only part of the equation, right? If you're not feeling fulfilled with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, it just anything can become a grind. We really felt like with the app business, we were kind of spinning our tires. It was just the same thing over and over again, and there wasn't really a lot of positivity. There was nothing good that we were really putting out into the world while we were doing it. We both had a big personal interest in self-development, so we knew we wanted to do something in that space. And we had both kind of just started listening to podcasts around that time. So the idea came up, Justin came up with the idea. He said, what if we get the permission from a bunch of different authors in the personal development space and just narrate their content on a daily basis, kind of like an audio book, but it'll be from, multiple different authors. It'll be every day of the week. It'll be 10 minutes or less. So it's kind of like a daily meditation practice almost.
Yeah.
I thought it was a wonderful idea. And from idea in Justin's head to launch was probably 3 to 4 months. We just got it up rolling, got permission from a few pretty big name authors to start, and that kind of just got the social proof and the ball rolling. And now here we are today with, I think, permission from over 400 authors to narrate their content on an ongoing basis.
So what was the interest though? You don't come to, you go to college, you start a business, you're making some money, and maybe even there you go, it's not really scratching the itch, but you don't just come up with personal development, motivation, inspiration out of nothing. There's got to be some exposure out there. So what's the background for you that even gave you the interest?
Yeah, I would say like athletics growing up for me was always my focus. It was mostly football, through college. And it was always like trying to get that edge. Like, what can I do that's going to give me 5% more, 10% more, all of those kind of things. And once that chapter of my life closed at the end of college, it was, okay, now how can I take that same mindset that I had with athletics from the time I was, 10 years old until 22? How can I take that and apply it to my life? And that's really where my interest in personal development came along. And it wasn't just self-development. It was personal finance, health, and nutrition, kind of all of those tenets that are so important to life. And it was all like, how can I find these things, find people who have done it, find people who have written about it, communicated about it, and just take their advice, take their examples, and put it into my own life. So it was always there. It just kind of grew from just being focused on like sports growing up to graduating, no longer having that outlet of sports, but still having that desire to improve myself, to be the best in certain categories, improve my life.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you just personal question between the two of us that a lot of people will listen to is because that's very similar to me. I mean, I was a pro cyclist, came from that, and then from business. And what I'm so focused on now, or I guess you say curious about, is it was an external performance thing. So that's what I've done and done it well. You get accolades for that. You make money, you make accomplishments or whatnot. And it was an external focus. It's really as of late that I'm finally turning it inward on myself and my own personal awareness and my own, emotional intelligence has been a big focus lately. And it's so profound to me that we can go after this, call it whatever you want, self-help, personal development, motivation, inspiration, and it's externally focused. And we go out there and it's great. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from that, but we can also miss our own self-awareness. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, it's so true because the external stuff is a lot easier to validate sometimes, right? Like if you're performing well in athletics or academics or business or any of those things, it's very easy to kind of validate it with real life results. But if you're working on your patience or your relationships, like there's some validation there, but a lot of times that's up to you to judge, like where's my growth at? Like where do I need to improve? How is my improvement? What else can I work on? For me, I got 2 young kids, and so like now a big focus of my life is parenting, right? Like, so you take in as much information as you can handle, but you also have to work with what works with my personality, my wife's personality, my kids' personality. So it's always a constant work in progress. But it's something it's very important to me, right? And again, it's hard to get that validation. There's no like guaranteed results I'm going to get by trying to be a better parent where I'm going to see those results. Like if I'm in the gym lifting weights and the weight is going up, that's not happening. It's more of like internally, how's my processing? How's my patience? How's my communication with my kids? They're all things I'm constantly working on, but I agree with you. It's harder to always validate that because it's much more of an internal thing.
And it's interesting. It's actually interesting timing as you say that, because I was thinking, yeah, you're right. The internal validation, which ultimately comes at like, am I at peace? Do I have joy? And it's acute to me. So as you know, as I'm sitting here in a sling with 7 broken bones from a mountain bike accident, and I say a collapsed lung. I hope the thing's not collapsed anymore, but I'm breathing okay. That's been interestingly to look at that because, man, my personal physical capability, that's a big part of my self-image. It's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my lifestyle. I fear it. I want to say something healthier, but I fear losing that. And of course, I'm trying to live in a way that I maintain it as long as I can. And yet here I am today. And one of the hardest aspects of my day is going to the bathroom and taking a shower. Now, I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'll recover from this and whatnot, but it's been interesting to look at that because I guess I should probably pat myself on the back a little bit that it hasn't just knocked me for a loop. I'm looking at it and I'm looking at it and going, you know what, man, I've been going after it. I responded to somebody today and said, you know what, honestly, I don't know if it's some righteous thing that I'm okay with it. I think I needed a break. I think I actually did. And that's what is interesting to me as we go along these pursuits of our personal growth is when the crap hits the fan, how does it pan out? How did we react? I mean, I think about that with family and stuff. I mean, there's big things that can happen to him. How am I preparing? Do you think about it that way? Not only how are you performing today, but how am I setting myself up to respond when things get really hard in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good point. It's a conversation Justin, my business partner, myself have all the time. It's like, as we processize our business and things get easier over time, it just gets easier from doing it all the time. Maybe life gets a little easier. My kids are getting older. They're out of diapers. They're in school. All of these things get easier. Sometimes, like, the easier life gets and the less adversity you have to overcome, sometimes that can be to the detriment of yourself. It's good to do hard things. It's good to challenge yourself. It's not good to break 7 bones and collapse your lung,
Fair.
but being in a position where you have to overcome adversity, it's really strengthening, I think, for your character. Um, it's it's good to challenge yourself, just to try to continually put yourself in some type of challenging or safe, but some type of adversity at all times, I believe, because otherwise you just life gets too easy. It gets too much of the same, too routine, and things that used to be no big deal all of a sudden feel like a big burden. Minor mishaps throughout the day all of a sudden feel like a big deal. And that's when you got to kind of take a step back and be like, well, maybe I should be challenging myself in some way in my life just to kind of build up some resiliency. So I have that when adversity strikes, I can deal with it.
Totally, man. It got a side tangent. I also thought it's kind of nice to not be a one trick pony too. So now I'm not out there killing it on the trails, but at least I got this, so I can revert back to this. If that's all I had, it's probably a good call out to look. I mean, if all of our identity, if all of our self-worth is wrapped up in one role and we lose that, we're in danger. Just like parenting, that a lot of people get, stuck right there. And gosh, what a glorious role. It's going to end at some point. It's just morbid. You could lose your kids, or at some point they're going to be at least empty nesters. And granted, you're always a parent, but totally, I've got kids out of the house. Totally different thing, man. They're off doing their gig. So good reason to have another role. I wanted to ask you too, it's almost another sidestep, but it's just of interest. You did this with Justin. So you got a buddy who you guys started this from scratch. So you guys have a partnership that's endured 7, 8 years now.
Yeah, since we started the app business, it was 2012. So yeah, we've gone
Really?
11 years now. Yeah.
So tell me about that. We just did a series. You probably don't know. We just did a series on, we've done one on friendships. We did another one recently on men specifically and friendships or lack thereof. So you guys doing that and being kindred spirits, doing business together. I mean, heck, at that level, you've got a marriage, outside of the romance, I imagine, but you've got that's a big deal too. How has that journey been?
Yeah, it's interesting. I took a lot of entrepreneurship classes in undergrad and grad school, and one of the biggest rules was always, don't get a business partner. It's very challenging.
That's why I asked. Yeah.
Yeah, most end in divorce. Justin and I obviously didn't take that advice, started working together. We were friends before we ever started a business, and I think that helps. There's just like a level of respect, genuine care for each other, and that's really grown obviously over 11 years of working together. But to be honest, it's a perfect match. We're very different personality-wise. We have different interests. Stuff I like to do for the business, he would rather not. Stuff he likes to do, I'm happy to take a back seat on that. So we really complement each other well, both in terms of work tasks, but also just personality. I've heard some really good marriage advice, and it was about like, be a loser in your marriage or how marriage is for losers. And it was like, you always want to be the one that's putting in extra effort. You don't want to be like, well, I did the dishes, I did the laundry, my wife didn't do any of those things today. Right. You want to have that mindset of, I did the dishes, I did the laundry, I'm trying to do extra. I'm trying to, quote unquote, lose in all of these situations because I'm trying to give as much as I can give. And like you said, having a business partner is like having a marriage. And I think both of us have always kind of had that mindset of, we're always trying to take the extra step, do what's necessary, and then go above and beyond. And I thought that's just communication. I don't think we've had a fight in 11 years, Justin and I. A few disagreements here and there, but there's just that level of respect for each other. We both know we're working hard, we're doing our best, we care about the business, we care about each other, and we're just open and direct and honest. If one of us is going through something, we need a little time off or something like that, if we're open and honest with each other, that person can take time off, the other person can pick up the slack, and then we move on. So it's just like marriage. I mean, it really is. It's having a business partner is like a marriage. My wife would tell you that I talk to Justin more than I talk to her, which is debatable, but that's what it is.
With you just mentioned going above and beyond. So with Optimal Living Daily, I want people to hear this because I'm, shameless promotion, folks. There's no money exchanged here. I got Lee on here because we got connected, and I just saw a kindred spirit. And I love how you guys are doing the show. It feels like you're doing, bite-sized pieces of what I'm doing, long form, because you're taking a message. So here's something you guys have curated and said, man, here's a good message, good book, whatever you're going to do. Read an excerpt. And you said it's usually about 1,000 to 1,500 words, correct, on the excerpt? But you don't just do that. You do an intro. Hey, here's what it came from. Here's the author. Here's the book. Here's the excerpt. You read it, literally narrate it. And then on the above and beyond thing, you add something to that. You give your own overview, or would you say your own perspective on what you see, and kind of a guidance into how to walk it out. Yeah.
Exactly. And, Optimal Living Daily is closing in on 3,000 episodes because it's every day. Justin, the host of that, he has not missed an episode since we started. So yeah, it's his thoughts. It's how it relates to his life. It's, having narrated 3,000 articles, he's had a lot of stuff come into his brain. And after a while, you see very similar patterns between certain writers. But the biggest thing that we try to feature on the show is different voices, different perspectives, because, no two people are exactly alike. Some people are completely polar opposites. So some weeks we'll have a show on Monday that has one point of view and a show on Wednesday that's the complete opposite point of view. And for some audience, the Monday show might hit home, and for some, the Wednesday show might be perfect for them. So we're not trying to give the audience our feelings on these episodes, or our perspective. We're just trying to share as many perspectives as possible so they can find the one that kind of hits home with them.
I'd be interested in, maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm curious about the patterns. I mean, because I see that. I have people, and I'm not looking for the patterns. I'm just looking for a topic of interest. So here's one on, on focus. Here's one on, gosh, we did one on manhood recently, on building muscle. Seemingly dissimilar things. And yet it's amazing I'd say it's amazing to me how often we do overlap. Now, obviously, as the host, I'm seeing it through my filter. So that's going to cause a little bit of overlap. But I really still feel like amongst these purveyors of any area of personal growth, it is. I talk so often about in the Bible, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. There's not. It's all been out there, but we need it in new flavors, new perspectives, according to the times that we're in now. But I'm curious, that you do see that, man, we're doing this stuff. And you've got 6 different areas, which I'm going to go through in just a second, but that you continue to see the similar patterns of what? Similar patterns of motive, of how would you categorize that?
I would say motive, process. You'll have some writers who, let's use productivity, for example. Yep. They're very analytical. They're very process oriented. So their solutions in their writing is they'll walk you through it and they'll break it down step by step. This is what you need to do to have a better morning routine, and it's a lot of it's science backed. And then you'll have other people who it's more, maybe it's relationship based, right? So their biggest thing would be like, and again, it's science backed, but it's like accountability. It's those personal relationships that will drive them forward. So from like certain examples, it's like that. But the other thing, there's just so many perspectives. And so it's more of like a time and place in the life, I feel like, for the listener and for the writer. So when we first started, certain authors we narrated from really hit home for me. I was newly married, living in Chicago, working in corporate America while I was doing this on the side. And it was just a certain type of writing that really appealed to me at that point in my life. After I had kids, the authors that were parents or newly parents and were writing about those experiences, all of a sudden, those are the ones that I really gravitated towards. So it's kind of like, as my life progressed, my gravitation to certain authors that we feature also progressed. So it's not just that their points of views are different or their thoughts process or their writing style is different. It's also like, as my personal journey goes along, different authors really kind of hit home for me.
How are you curating the material for the shows? And I'll ask that because I think we all have our own ways. And first off, it's just whatever I'm interested in. Now, I am getting fed, and I assume you are too, from the big agencies, the big publishing houses. They're sending you the next books from the people that they think are going to resonate. So I appreciate that because I don't have to be proactive. That just comes to me. But man, the amount of books, I don't have no idea what it may be. 1 out of 20 that I'm interested in, which is why I've got 11 boxes of books down in the basement of the office here that I'm sure they're great. They just didn't hit me right. So the curation process is still difficult for me. It's something it's hard. I try to delegate as much as I can, but ultimately at the end of the day, I got to look at it and look and go, gosh, is this somebody? I mean, I did with you, so optimal living, you don't have a book, but you've got this show. Do I resonate with that? Absolutely. And then you and I did a call, I was sitting on my back porch and we did one of these Zooms. Go, okay, do I get this guy? Do we resonate? So what does a curation process look like for you guys to pick and choose who you want and think is going to be a benefit to the audience?
Yeah. So 95% of the authors that we narrate from have an existing blog. So it's consistent content. They've been writing for at least 2.5 years usually. So they've kind of found their voice, worked out the kinks in their writing. When we first started, it was easy because we had a blank slate. We had nobody. So we just started reaching out to niches that we were interested in. So minimalism was really big at the time.
Yeah.
The minimalists were the first authors to give us permission, which was massive for us. We have the personal finance, we have the health, but as far as a curation standpoint now, so we have permission from 400 authors. Greg, who's our full-time employee, he's wonderful. He does the curation now. So we got a list of 400 authors and we have all their content, tied up in a Excel doc, and he goes through and chooses it. But it is a very thoughtful process because, personal development has a lot of different buckets underneath it. And we don't want to necessarily have the same show Monday through Sunday. Yeah. So he tries to kind of balance those choices between different niches, different voices, and obviously different authors every day of the week. So there's kind of a balance there. So I did that job for a long time. I spent about 4 hours a day reading when I was curating content. So that was both reading content to put on the shows, but then also reading content from potential new authors that we wanted to reach out to get permission from.
Okay. So I'll throw this at you personally as well. This, when I wrote my book, so a couple years now, and I'm sitting there, we've got the structure of the book and I'm just going in and they wanted the stories and some of the things to really highlight, the interest of the chapters. And I'm realizing, oh my gosh, after so many years of so many books and so many authors, all the people sitting on the shelves behind me, that I know a lot. I mean, there's a lot up here. I was kind of impressed with myself. I really was. I was pleased, not in a real prideful way, like, dang, this is awesome. And then on the same side, it was so daunting to realize how much knowledge I had in there and how little of the stuff I had actually taken the time to apply to my life. How's that hit you personally?
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? About consuming so much amazing content is it's easy to feel like you're not doing enough personally. And that's exactly how I felt. I was reading 4 hours a day, personal development, personal finance, health, relationships, all these things. And it felt like I was coming up short in some of these areas in my life. And it's like, how are you coming up short in these areas? You're spending so much time consuming this content. But, over time, you kind of learn, like, it's great to learn. It's wonderful. It's amazing. But you have to take the action. Like, if you don't take the action, you can learn everything in the world. And I've seen it myself before. A perfect example is working out. When I was younger and I knew nothing about working out, I was the most consistent. I was always in the gym. I was always working out, but I didn't know anything. So it was like, I wasn't trying to battle with perfection. Then when you start to learn more and you figure out, well, maybe this is the perfect routine. And so you're trying to tinker and set it up with it. And I spend more time tinkering and setting it up than I do spending hours in the gym actually working out. So it's interesting, right? It's hard. It's hard to sometimes be in this personal development space and hear all these amazing things and all these people who are so good at certain aspects of their life, and you're seeing it or hearing it on a daily basis, to try to, again, like, validate yourself against them on their own journey.
That's morphed how we are positioning me. So am I here as the show is called Self-Helpful? Am I here as a self-help guru? No. A guide. Yeah. So to say I've gone through so much information, man. I'm a wealth of knowledge and I'm working to apply it to my life. So I think somebody called me recently and said, man, thanks for being my life Sherpa. I thought that's cool. You're a Sherpa, man. You're carrying some stuff. You know the way up there, but you're also on the road with them, and you may slip and fall, and you're privy to the same dangers and whatnot that's out there. That's what I see with you guys, kind of as guides, curators, as the main positioning you guys have taken.
Absolutely, that's our role. We can't give you all the answers, but we can give you a wide variety of perspectives, opinions, and you've got to take with what works best for you and then run with it and then put that action into place.
Optimal Living Daily. So that's the initial show. And that was kind of, it could be a show on different, kind of like mine, on different aspects of personal growth. Could be on finance, relationships, health and wellness, work, whatever it may be. Now, however, and then you started adding it today, you've got the overall Optimal Living podcast, and then you've got one for finance. Is that what you refer to? Optimal Living Finance, health, relationships, work, and parenting, which my folks will know we go a lot through the Ziegler Wheel of Life, 7 key areas. That's in essence, most of them. We include a personal one, kind of personal interest and achievements or whatnot. But that's it. So you guys have taken those out and just segmented those in their own podcast. So if you want to just go to finance, so it's just an easy way to categorize them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And so the initial goal was OLD would encapsulate all of those areas.
Yeah.
But with the quick success of the show, we found that, there's quite a bit of difference between, your health and nutrition content and your personal growth stuff and personal finance and budgeting. So it seemed like a natural evolution of the show to kind of segment it out.
Yeah. You said it's actually in the intake form from you, and I wanted to ask a couple of things on that. You said, in the thousands of hours that I've spent curating self-help content for the OLD podcasts over the past 8 years, my favorite messages include, and you gave me 3. First one, action precedes motivation. Unpack that for me.
There's a lot of days where you'll wake up and you will not feel like doing whatever you have to do that day, whether it's, again, working out, whether you're starting a business. The best advice, the advice that hit home the most with me is just do it. Basically put one foot in front of the other and do it. The hardest part for me to work out is to put my gym shoes on and walk into my garage, which is where my gym is. As soon as I cross that doorway, I'm good to go for the day. Starting a business, it's exciting when you come up with an idea and you're first kind of planning it out and talking it out. It's so exciting. But then when you get down to like actual processes, actual decisions, financing, all of those steps, it's difficult. It's challenging. You're not going to be motivated forever. You're not going to be inspired forever. A lot of times those are kind of like, they can be like an ignition to move you on. But for that day to day progress, some days you just got to move. You just have to do the things, even if you're not feeling it. And a lot of times that motivation will come after the fact, once you're already engaged and moving forward on something.
So let's dig in there. So I am grateful and honored that coming up in an episode of Optimal Living Daily, you guys are going to read a couple excerpts from my book. So my book, What Drives You. So in that, what I have found, and it really was somewhat of an epiphany for me, growing up in the motivation, inspiration aspect, let's get motivated. And I understand that. And yet what hit me as I researched the book and thought through my own experience and the experience, again, of so many of the people in the books behind me, the people I had on the show, is the need for motivation as we think of it, to motivate yourself, pump you up. That need was less when you are clear on what you want to achieve. So like that, do you need to motivate yourself when you know that, when your goal is you could state it. So you're going in there in your home gym for what reasons? For I want to build muscle and look GQ, or I want to be able and capable for my family, or I want to have a health span that equals my lifespan and live, whatever those is. I assume that you're clear on those. And so even on the morning that you're not that motivated, you don't really have to be, because you know the end goal, and that in and of itself gets you out there. And yeah, you can put some music on and kind of amp yourself up, but give me your thoughts on that, because I play with that. I want to say that's a statement, but it's always a a fluid issue of motivation and then actually doing it, taking action, as you said.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, the better the goal you have, the easier it is to overcome any obstacles in your way. So, when I was younger, I was working out, at post athletics, I was working out to look good, right? It wasn't the best motivation. For some people, it might be. But then I have kids and I'm like, man, I want to be healthy. I want to be active with them for as long as possible. I want to be around, if they want to go ride a bike, go run, go play sports, swim, whatever. I want to be able to do that for as long as possible. So, you get a better goal and all of a sudden that motivation is stronger. It's more consistent day to day because that goal that I'm shooting for is strong, right? Like that's pulling me to continue to do these things, even when I don't feel like it.
You said football was your background. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one that got me, Lee, is thinking about that and thinking about like the consummate, coach scene where, you're on the skids or doing whatever and the coach is screaming, you got to want it more. You got to want it more. I'm thinking, dude, if you got to scream at somebody like that, apparently they don't want it more. The guy who really kills it. Well, I doubt there was some coach out there screaming at Walter Payton, you got to want it more. Dude, he wanted it so bad. They actually had to go get him to quit training after practice when he's running hills over and over. The dude wanted it so bad. They thought he's going to kill himself. That's the one that kind of got to me, is that thing. If somebody's yelling at you, if you got to have that kind of motivation pumping in, I would question, do you really, maybe you don't want that. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you should be freed from that because you don't want to be on the freaking football field because you're really interested in science or something like that. To question if we need that much motivation, maybe we don't want it or we're unclear on the goal. Thoughts?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, football is something I loved and the desire was always there. I didn't need a pep talk. I didn't need anything. I was ready to go. Some days were harder than others, not games, but practices, sometimes it's a long season and you get beat up but that desire was always there. It was always internal. It was always there. It was constant. There was no second thoughts about what I was doing. It was there. So I agree with you. When that goal is there, when you really have that desire to do something, it doesn't feel that challenging to push yourself pretty hard.
Okay. So let me ask you on the other side, if there's been an area, and this is in my book, part of my story is financially. I had some hidden motives. I mean, I thought, of course you want to make money. And then I come to realize, man, I keep sabotaging it because I've got a hang up about business and making money and being about power because I wanted to be all about heart. And so I had this incongruentness in essence, or cognitive dissonance happening. And so I would need somebody to motivate me to have a financial plan and budget and, and hit it on that side and realize, man, there was something underneath. There is a problem. You can't motivate that problem. Is there, like when you look at these areas, I mean, you guys have the 6 shows or the 6 areas: living, finance, health, relationships, work, parenting. Have you found an area in your own life, one of those, it's kind of an Achilles heel? You've got some, it's a weak spot, or you got some baggage or something that tends to sabotage you there. You see you smiling. What?
Yeah, it's good. I feel like at different points in my life, pretty much any one of those categories has had some hangups. It just depends as we're evolving, like I said earlier, my focus right now is family, it's parenting, it's my kids. And I can't point you to like a historical hang up that I have that caused any issues, but I just think because it's my focus, it feels the most challenging sometimes. Like it feels like I'm not at the level I want to be at, whether it's patience, with my kids or communication with my kids or my wife. It's like, I feel like the things that you want the most, sometimes you might hold yourself to a higher standard too, because you're focused on them so much. So it feels challenging.
When your second one here, again, in that you said the favorite message, you said consistent and focused effort gives you a chance to create amazing results. Same thing. Unpack that for us.
Yes. Consistent effort is really important. You got to put in the work day after day, but the key there is consistent and focused, because you need to know exactly what you're striving for and how to get there. It's like deliberate practice. Cal Newport talks a lot about that. Yep. And athletes and musicians. It's the ones that have that deliberate practice. They know exactly what they're working on. Kobe Bryant was not out there randomly shooting jump shots, around the hoop. He was shooting the same jump shot on the same move 1,000 times. They're perfecting that exact shot. It's not just like I'm going to go to the court and shoot around for a couple hours. It's very focused. It's very consistent. And again, it gives you a chance. It doesn't guarantee it. You don't get guaranteed results. It's like starting a business. You can put in the work every day and you can put in focused work every day, but it does not guarantee you success. It gives you a chance, and it gives you a much better chance than if you're not doing those things. And that's kind of what we found. That's why we did the daily show. We wanted it consistent. We wanted it very focused on the niche we're in, and no excuses. It's going to go up every day, and it's going to go up every day. And then we had a second show. It's going to go up every day. So that consistent, focused effort really gave us a chance for success, and then there's things that happen, luck is a big factor in it, right? Luck might be 80% of the reason for our success, like with our podcast business, but we would have had a 0% chance of getting any of that luck had we not done the hard work, done the consistent and focused work every day to get to those points, like those inflection points that we had in our business.
The consistent aspect, and that is one that is so significant to me, Lee. I think over time you tend to look at those big efforts and focus on the big efforts. And yeah, being my age too, I'm older than you, but I see that, man, if I can just make a little deposit, it blows me away at how much. We did a show just recently with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. I don't think it's published yet, on muscle, and realizing that, you want to gain some muscle, you want bigger biceps or stronger biceps, whatever it is. And so you work out, you're doing your sets, you're going to fatigue, you're tearing the muscle down, feeding it so it can be build back up bigger. And that's hard. And yet when you get to that size you want, this is being an athlete. So let's say you get, you add an inch onto your bicep, or you're able to, curl 20 pounds more, whatever it is, that once you do that, maintaining it, it blows me away at how little you have to do to maintain it. It's a little deposit here and there, some push-ups here and there, some pull-ups, some curls, some whatever. That one blows me away. And I think we miss that. Unless you've done it long enough to realize it, you don't understand the amazing benefit of these seeming, to me, insignificant deposits, in regard, especially as opposed to when you're trying in the build-up stage. But to maintain it is so small. That's inspiring. But I think kind of what you're talking about too, and you got to do it long enough to realize that. Otherwise, it seems so overwhelming and daunting, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, think about what you said as far as, building muscle goes. Think about for personal finance. If you save a lot of money early in life, you are good to go. You can save a ton for the first 10 to 15 years, and you're probably, 3-4 times better off than someone who waits until they're in their 40s to start saving. Relationships, the same thing. Putting that time and effort in up front, having people know like your character, it changes the whole dynamic, for future interactions or for friends of friends. It's like all of that time and consistent effort and things you put in up front, they pay massive dividends down the road.
It's interesting. I'll give this to you for your kids, because we just got it from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. So her book, Forever Strong. And she said the same thing with muscle. Totally makes sense. I just hadn't thought about it, because I thought, if you're 50, you never worked out, you can go into the gym, you can kill it, and you can gain some muscle. She's saying, yeah, but core skeletal muscle mass, that the kind that really benefits our health overall, long-term, cognitively. And of course, she's looking at aging well. It's a focus of her, of her focus on muscle. And she said, man, the earlier you do it, just like what you said. So if you're I'm thinking about sports and the benefit, that if you're an athlete, you see a lot of people, they're athletes in younger age, and they get out, they go to school, they, get a job, whatever, and they fall off the wagon and then say, oh gosh, I got to get back into it. Man, you can get back to it pretty quick, as opposed to those who never did it. It's like, call it muscle memory. It's kind of an odd way, it doesn't really relate exactly to the dynamics of how it works, but same thing. What you do early on, it makes it so much easier than coming to it later in life. Now, with all kudos to those who are hearing stuff like, later in life right now, it's amazing how much you can do later in life. But I guess to the younger you are out there, like kind of what's the best time to start something you've never done? And, today is what you're saying. And I know you guys speak to on the shows. Third point you had, the importance of environment for habit change and follow through? Tell me more.
The more decisions you can take away from yourself in terms of things you want to accomplish, the easier that process will go. So, um, you want to work out. It's simple advice. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, but set your running shoes right next to your bed. Wear your workout clothes to sleep that night. So you wake up, you're ready to go. Whatever those habits are, just remove as many obstacles, even if they're minor. It can be for positive habit change. It could be for negative habit change. Um, you know, I've heard of people who, drink coffee too much, have too much caffeine. They want to cut back. If they unplug their coffee pot, put it up on the highest shelf in their kitchen, all of a sudden it's not like, hey, I'm going to go in there and flip the switch on and throw some water in to make coffee. It's like, I got to climb up on a stool. I got to pull the coffee pot out. It just makes you pause for that minute. Same thing with junk food, right? Hide the junk food. Get it out of the house completely. So if you want bad food, you got to go to the store and go buy it. And then, so it gives you that pause where you can stop and think about what you're doing, and then make that decision.
Am I right? Do I remember correctly? You guys have had Dr. Benjamin Hardy on the show, or you've done excerpts from his book?
We narrate his blog content. Yep, from Medium.
Okay. Well, he's what you just said right there on environment. That's my go-to guy. His book, Willpower Doesn't Work, which was his first book, his first big book, is one of my favorites. And that's it. So folks, let's go get the book, go listen to the excerpts on Optimal Living Daily. I've had him on the show. I think we just had him on for like the 5th time. And that one was a long time ago, but my favorite resource for crafting your environment for success instead of, waiting on your willpower. Cause if I want to cut back on coffee, what I do is I just don't have coffee in the house. Otherwise I'm going to figure out a way and it's going to happen. And so crafting the environment, so that's a huge one. And as everybody's enamored with habits right now, thanks to James Clear and his meteoric book. So back to your statement, the importance of environment for habit change and follow through is a main thing. I mean, obviously, at some point I'm looking for your book because in having been a curator of all this stuff, interested in the patterns that you see and continue to see. And, when I will ask this, I don't like it when people ask this. So I'm going to try to say it in a way that's not so stinking difficult because they always want to say, okay, what's the favorite book? Who's the favorite person? Whatever. But is there a favorite? Is there somebody you tend to go back to quite a bit as far as certain authors? I know, well, and I want to say that about the show. I know that that's a premise of you guys is not just having another new author on the show all the time, that you, like you said, you're going through, you have these authors that you're curating stuff from them over and over. So we're hearing messages from some of the same people, which I like. It helps us build a relationship, helps us understand the person's flavor and whatnot. And I think engage with them more. But on that, not to put you totally on the spot, but are there some authors' messages that have really even if you look at the ones as of late, they go, oh man, that one stuck out to me. That one resonated and I want to do something on that one.
Yeah. So Benjamin Hardy would definitely be one. I'm pretty sure Willpower is a ways back on my bookshelf too. So, just in terms of like habit change and, he's such a great writer. And he makes these concepts feel so easy and so attainable. And, a lot of times his articles, his books, it's just like, it lays it out for you. Like, you do X, Y, and Z. If you follow that process, you're going to improve your odds of succeeding quite a bit. So I'd say like on the productivity habit change side, he would definitely be one of my favorites. Joshua Becker, he has becomingminimalist.com. I've also got to meet him in person, which helps, right? You meet people like,
totally.
Like he's a wonderful writer. He's honestly, he's a phenomenal writer. He's married. He has 2 kids. He does a lot with charity. He's a very generous person. So his writing by itself is great. It's wonderful. It covers minimalism. It covers relationships, parenting, all of these different aspects of improving your life. But then when you meet somebody and they're like even better than the way they seem, from the surface, it gives you an even deeper level of like respect for the stuff, that they're putting out there.
Here's a question that's off tangent, but I'm going to take the opportunity to ask it. in doing what you do, which again, I have such a similar, I mean, I don't know how many books, we average in a given week that are sent to us. So I feel like a connoisseur of nonfiction books, and specifically in the personal development category. Are there certain, I don't even know how to ask this one because I'm thinking about how I would answer it myself. But, some books where right away it's a turn off or a turn on for you, like a certain style that they write or a certain spirit that comes out of it. I could even think of, do you want to see a level of authority, a level of humility? Do you want to see story? Do you want to see analytics? What is it that you tend to be drawn or repelled from?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing for me is that story. So if you can tell me a story, I will remember that story. I'll remember it 5 years from now. If you give me a list of things to do without that story in place, then unless I'm doing that thing immediately, writing it down, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I will forget that by next week. So to me, it's like the best writers are the ones who tell a story, still give you the list of 10 things, but they wrap it in a story where you're going to remember what to do and why you're doing it. And then if it's backed by science, so you really know you're getting, the best of the best in terms of research or tips or strategies, though, that's like a home run for me.
What's coming up next for the Optimal Living Empire? You guys got new things in the works, or is it just keep on doing well what you're doing right now?
We're always looking, we're always experimenting, trying new things. It's part of the fun of doing this, of being in this space. And trends change over time. When we first started, minimalism was a huge trend. So like a lot of the content we narrated focused on minimalism. It's still there, and it kind of comes in waves now, I feel like, with minimalism, but there's other things that have come and gone, in the last 8 years. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things. So it's good for us because we stay in the loop on what's happening in the self-help space, the personal finance space, health, kind of stay aware of trends and what people are interested in. And we try to, curate the content that best fits what's going on in the current climate.
Yeah. Man, I love hearing about it. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. I'll ask you for some resources here in just a second. Folks, everybody, thank you for joining us on this journey to elevate your own experience and improve the way you show up for others. That's the point of the show here. This again is Lee Rankinen. It's Optimal Living Daily. Now, again, if you type that into whatever, Apple Podcast, Spotify, you'll see all 6. You'll see Optimal Living Daily. I love the way you guys have the graphic on there, Lee, on each one. It's kind of similar, but it highlights what the focus of that show is. So you can go sign up for Optimal Living Daily, subscribe to that wherever you listen to podcasts. And then you can also do their curated one on Optimal Living, on finance, on health, on relationships, work, and parenting. Did I get them all, Lee?
You got them.
All right. Well, folks, if you appreciate this podcast and want to share it with others, please rate the show on Spotify or leave a review and rating on Apple. And I'd say do the same for Lee and everything over there at Optimal Living Daily. If you enjoy what you're hearing, go leave a ranking, leave a review, and tell people what you appreciate about the show. It's the best thing you can do for us as podcasters. For us, you can subscribe on YouTube to watch the full episodes, and you can find me at Kevin Miller CO on social media. And if you want to learn how to master your own inner drive, get my book, What Drives You, on Amazon, or go to Optimal Living Daily in, I think, November of 2023 and listen to them read an excerpt. And until next time, folks, stay driven.
Yeah.